Okay, it's 12 noon here in Saskatchewan, so we will get started. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 2025 edition of the IYCA Webinar Series. We are excited to have you with us today. The IYCA is committed to empowering young individuals, students, and professionals with the tools and insights they need to thrive. Today's discussion will focus on skills and strategies that are universally applicable no matter your career path. We have two topics before us today. First, we will look at our sustainable farming practices as we explore some approaches to regenerative agriculture and provide some sustainable options. Secondly, we will look at livestock nutrition and feed safety as we learn from the expertise of one of our speakers today in monogastric nutrition and quality assurance. So without wasting time, I will introduce our first speaker, Josh. Josh, are you ready?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you. So give me a moment to introduce you to the audience. Josh Cormack is from Brooksdale Coulee Farms. He is a steward of a century-old farm in northwest Saskatchewan, where he combines traditional and regenerative farming practices to produce sustainable grass-fed Angus beef. His mission is to provide nutritious local food options while promoting the health of the land, soil, water, and livestock. Through the Brooksdale Coulee Farms, Josh raises cattle in natural and stress-free environments, ensuring the highest quality beef for his customers. His dedication to sustainable agriculture extends beyond the farm as he works to connect consumers with their food sources and advocate for regenerative farming as a path to a healthier planet. Josh's work is a testament to how traditional farming values can align with modern sustainable goals. So thank you very much, Josh, for joining us today. I will now allow you to share your screen and give your presentation. And after that, we have some minutes of questions and answers before we go to our next speaker.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Deborah, for letting me come on and share our story on the farm. You did a great job explaining it, probably better than I can, but thank you. I don't have anything to share on the screen today. I'm just gonna briefly kind of run through what we do and let you guys have any questions if you do. But yeah, we can sort of get started. Yeah, I grew up on the farm. A little bit about myself. I grew up on the farm. When I graduated high school, I went to the city and had never, we're quite isolated. So when I went to the city, it kind of opened up a lot of different sort of opportunities, and I did a couple different things, which I think is actually quite key into how I kind of got back to the farm and sort of how we sort of plan our farm going forward. Some of those life skills are so important to the farm. So yeah, I did some welding. So I worked in some manufacturing shops, sort of high pace, high production, but learned a lot about efficiencies and just in general, and kind of taking some of those things that maybe you do over generations that you think twice about, and you can create sort of efficiencies if you think about them in different ways. And definitely getting off the farm and learning other skills and trades is so important. And being that this is a youth sort of talk, I would strongly recommend everybody to try a number of things. And yeah, from there I got into some architecture, and you travel, you learn more about the food, and you start seeing where you travel around and you see how important food security is. And, you know, I definitely didn't necessarily see that growing up in sort of the small rural area that I did. Everything we made, we shipped away and we shipped everything back. And so to sort of start thinking about trying to shrink those food chain is important as well. Which is kind of where we're starting to try to take our farm. Yeah, so I now live in Saskatoon. Our farm is actually 2 hours outside of Saskatoon. So I have connections in the city. I have and I have the farm outside. So it's certainly a juggling act, but something that we quite enjoy, and it's a definitely different way to think about sort of the traditional farming that we do. I guess if anybody has any questions throughout the presentation, stick up your hand or whatever. Maybe Deborah can cut me off, but otherwise I'll just kind of keep going. So that's kind of about me. Yeah, I was off the farm for about 15 years and then came back to the farm that I grew up on. And so that's kind of what brings me back here. A little bit, I guess, about our farm, just to kind of give you guys a sort of mental picture of it. It's about roughly 2,800 acres, which in today's world, I would say is a small to medium-sized farm. Every bit of our land touches though. So it's one big block of land that touches, it's really nice to have. We're not traveling around much. All our cattle stay home, what we would call home, for their whole life. They're never trucked around or anything. Everything's moved by hand, and yeah, they rarely see a truck. So in that 2,800 acres, about 15 to 1,700 acres is riparian areas and bush and land that has never seen any sort of conventional agriculture. So it's always just been the grass that grows there, the trees. We host a abundance of wildlife. And then outside of that, we have about 1,000 to 1,200 acres of what we would call broken land, which has been conventionally farmed. And it's grown all kinds of crops over the years. We've been on the land about 100 years, so it's grown crops. But now, for the most part, it's all seeded down to tame grass, and that's where we pasture our cattle throughout the year. We do grow about 200 to 300 acres of grain, cereal crops, so oats, barley, mixture, peas, rye, and that's we'll talk about that, but that is what we use for our winter grazing of the cattle. So yeah, that kind of give you a picture. So the riparian areas are there's a creek, it's quite rugged, it's a coulee, so it's not really very easy for sort of the big conventional grain farming that you might see today in Saskatchewan. So we have a wide range of soil types, right from almost straight sand to little pockets of really, really rich soil. But we learned to kind of work with all the soil types, but most of them are primarily growing grass at this time. So the big question that I often get is why or how do you raise grass-fed beef in Saskatchewan? We're a cold climate, and it's hard for some people to kind of get their heads wrapped around it, because we're winter 8, 9, months of the year. So I guess we've done it both ways, but ultimately the first reason we do it is for economics. In order to keep our land, our farm viable, we found that has been the best way. And once you do that for a few years, we started to see the changes in our cattle and the health of them, and a lot less sick animals, a lot stronger, healthier animals. Our vet bills were going down. Cattle were living longer. Feet, all kinds of things we start seeing as we transition to this. So we transitioned from sort of conventional agriculture in sort of the mid 90s, and we've seen improvements even today as we kind of improve upon what we do, and primarily those improvements are in the health of our animals, and also as you get more efficient, you see more and more economic reasons for it as well, and the two obviously is kind of the main reason why we do it. We're with grass-fed beef, you do get a different flavor of beef and a lot leaner beef, and so we didn't start actually marketing our beef until about the last 5 years, and we definitely see that it's unique, it's different from what else is out there, and we face all kinds of challenges in people saying that it's a less superior product. It's got less marbling, all those things. It doesn't grade like grain-fed beef does. But ultimately for us, we see the results in the health of our animals, and that's why we continue to do it. We find it very delicious. So yeah, I'm kind of sorry, I'm kind of rambling on, but I'm gonna sort of go into that a bit as well on if you think about a grain-fed cow, you would feed them about 8 pounds of grain a day. So if you picture 8 pounds of grain, you picture an ice cream pail, say roughly that much, and you think of the size of the cow, that's what they're getting as their nutrition through the day. And a cow with 4 stomachs, that it just doesn't work very well, and I think this is why you see more sickness and less healthy cattle, because that nutrition is supposed to go through those 4 stomachs and regurgitate, and so you compare that to a forage-based diet, which is roughly 25 pounds of forage, and that's a large mass of product that goes through their stomachs, and that's what cows, their 4 stomachs were meant for. And so yeah, we find that it's gut health is one of the most important things we find in humans today, and we're seeing these results in our cattle as well as the more forage-based diets we get into. And I know a big thing with the methane release in cattle, it's being watched a lot, and certainly you think of the little bit of grain that's going in there, it's causing all kinds of gas, and that's being released out, and so there's a lot of sustainability that we're learning just through us doing it. I will say I'm not educated in any way agriculturally, and maybe Deborah could probably chime in here a little later on more of that, but we just see it in the health of our cattle, and so we continue to build on that. I think, yeah, and we've that kind of transitions us into starting to market it ourselves. We market, you market healthy animals, you market healthy food. And so we've started to, with my connections in the city, we've been working with just friends, neighbors, people reach out to us. I have worked with a lot of restaurants throughout the years, and continue to build those relationships. And it's a nice sort of change off the farm too, to make other certain connections. I've got a lot of farm connections around the farm, which is nice too, but it's also nice to make other types of connections. You learn so much more from meeting lots of different people. And so yeah, we just market our beef through our Instagram page. We don't do a website. It's kind of a tough to ship frozen beef, so we try to keep it as local as possible, just throughout the city of Saskatoon, and continuing to build on that. Yeah, I think that's kind of sums up what we do. I guess I would open it to any questions, comments, challenge me, whatever somebody might have.
Thank you very much, Josh. That is very well detailed. We have 2 questions here already.
Okay.
So the first one says, the first one is from Eric. What challenges did you meet when you started a farm, and what are the opportunities that are in Canada agriculture for international youth? And how do you see Canada conservation in agriculture? I guess the question is how you started, and what are the opportunities that your farm has been able to provide, or that are available for students, for younger agriculturists on your farm.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I started, I definitely, I grew up in it. That was sort of my first start. But I did leave, like I said, and it was kind of that drawback was what brought me back to it. I think he also mentioned challenges, and yes, it's not an easy path. I think probably our biggest challenges are the ones we can't control, which is weather, climate. You can plan your year out as best you can, but you never really know how it's going to go. So those are challenges. Markets are challenges. Everything is up, down. There's nothing sort of, it can be planned. It's all kind of sort of fly by the seat of your pants, as we would say. So those are some challenges for sure. Opportunities, I think there is a lot of opportunities. In that one, I would say our rural communities where our farm is, we don't have a lot drawing people to those communities outside of agriculture that seems to always be there. And there's certainly growth in agriculture in Saskatchewan, and there's opportunities to work alongside, to learn, I will say I don't have a full-time employee, but we certainly hire contract people throughout the year for all kinds of things. And yeah, I think there's postings for sort of seasonal, because farming in Saskatchewan, a lot of it is seasonal, but there's certainly opportunities there. I know on your website, I believe you have some opportunities as well.
Yes, we do. Yeah. If there are any
So,
opportunities, you can send them across our way. We will post it for the students to see.
okay, yep.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we have another question from Samuel. What are the key differences in farming practices between grass-fed and grain-fed beef? What kind of grasses and pastures do you use? And also to add to that question, I was wondering when you were presenting, what exactly is grass-fed beef? Does it mean you feed them grass all over the years? Are there times that you supplement their diet with grains? I see that you grow barley, oats, and rye on your farm. Are those for supplementation in times of maybe there are no grasses for them? So yeah, I just wanted to expatiate on that a bit to let people know what exactly is grass-fed beef.
Yeah, so great question. So grass-fed beef is not well, how would I say, monitored, or there's no sort of it, like you have organic farming where it's regimented, you can do this and this. Grass-fed beef doesn't have that. So it can be broad, for sure. So I guess from my standpoint, what we call grass-fed beef is we strictly would give them grass, but for the summer months or summer fall months, they would be on pasture grazing grass. In the winter, we would feed them hay that we harvested in the summer. So grass that we harvested in the summer is what they would get. And they grow, so something else, they grow a lot slower. So it takes a longer time to kind of finish off a beef to where you would market it as beef. There's a few questions there I'm going to try to hit as well. So our grass-fed beef is we sort off a few every year that we channel into what we would call our food chain. And so those, when they're weaned off their mother, so they would be on pasture and grass all summer with their mother, milk from their mother, we would wean them off. And then from then on, they would have hay all winter, slowly grow, and then they go back on pasture in the summer. And then they come back, and for the next winter, they would be finished on that hay again. So our beef that we go into the food chain, we start harvesting them between roughly 24 and 30 months of age. Typically won't go beyond that 30 months, but we do some beyond the 30 months as well. And yeah, those would be just on hay all year or all their life outside of with their mother. There was another question in there about growing grains as well, and we do grow grains. So we grow a couple hundred acres of grains that is swathed. So our mother cows, after those calves are weaned, our mother cows in the winter go on to that, and we still call that a forage diet because they're eating the stalk, the grain, all of it. They're not just eating the little bit of grain that you know, if it was harvested in grain. And on that, there is sort of some rough guidelines on what grass-fed beef would be, and I think it's one of the regulators in Saskatoon here has a grass-fed, and so if you harvest or if you cut a grain when it's still green, they would consider that also grass fed, but our cows would go on that all winter, and that they're out feeding themselves on that, and that's on the land, and we see huge results in the health of them as well doing that. So I think hopefully
Thank
I
you very
answered
much.
that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I learned a little bit about hay making during this summer. So I learned about the timing, the harvest, the grains is earlier, much earlier than the normal harvesting time. So they retain more nutrients compared to when they already mature. So thank you very much for that. So we have another question from Fisayo. Could you explain more on the winter feeding for cattle, the formulation of diet and all that? So yeah, so how do cattle feed during winter?
So
How do you like combine the grasses they eat, because they can choose their own grasses? How do they get balanced diet from the grasses they pick voluntarily in the field?
I think I understand that question. So the grass that we would harvest would be a mixture of grasses. So primarily our tame grasses that we grow are alfalfa and a mixture of brome grasses. Those would be baled up together and fed to them, so they eat that. Is that kind of what the question is? I guess as far as I don't test my feed as far as what sort of I have in the past as far as protein content and things like that, minerals and stuff. I have tested it, but ultimately we just judge the cattle and the shape of them and the health of them, and we're not changing things from year to year, like everything, drastically. We make little modifications from year to year, but everything is fairly similar into the types of feeds. It's coming from the same land. As far as nutrition and things like that, we base it on the health of our herd, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we have another question here. Do you know A&W also markets grass-fed beef?
I do know that they market grass-fed beef. Yeah. I see the commercials. I don't I don't know the stream to get sort of my beef into that. I think it's more of an Eastern thing from what I understand. They have sort of a few farms that they draw from out there, as far as I know. But yeah, I definitely am aware they market it. The thing I would say with A&W, and just on a side note, all they're selling is burger. And there's a lot of parts of the animal that I'm not sure how that sort of all works out, but yeah, it doesn't hurt us to have a corporation like that marketing grass-fed beef too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, one more question here from Samson. Hello, thanks for your talk. I was curious about economics and profitability of your farm. Do you have a niche market, government subvention? How do you compete with the grain-raised beef farmers?
So I would say you're correct in that we have a niche market, because there isn't a lot of grass-fed sort of markets available. Competing, like I guess I didn't, when I said earlier we sort off a few that go into the grass-fed chain, but I also sell a bunch through market that would end up in that grain, end up in a feedlot in southern Alberta or somewhere. So a lot of my cattle would not end up in the grass-fed markets. It would go. So I compete, I guess, that way. I will say when my cattle go through the ring, they often do quite well, because if you see a grain-fed animal beside a grass-fed animal, they don't, if you know what you're looking for, they look better, they look healthier, they don't have a bunch of feces on them. So they're yeah, we always compete. It's a game for sure.
Thank you so much, Josh. I want to have, there's one more question here from Samuel, and I have a question myself, which I think will be the last question.
Okay.
Are there opportunities for scaling up grass-fed production? So in line with that, I want to ask about what are some affordable ways to begin a small-scale beef farming business without, for people that don't have significant capital? Are there some affordable ways to start a beef
So
farming?
yeah, I would, it's tough these days, and I feel for people trying to start. But when I went back and said our farm is primarily riparian and bush, it's not high production land, which ultimately is cheaper land to buy too. It's still expensive, but it's often more affordable to buy land that somebody can't go in and conventionally farm. So there's affordability that way. I would say, to get started in it, and you don't need a lot of equipment either. You're growing grass, you're just raising animals. I would say it's maybe one of the more affordable things to get started in. You definitely see more and more smaller people starting up are starting this way. And if you can market your beef, you can maybe get a little bit more for it as well. So I think it's certainly an economical, one of the more affordable ways to get into farming.
Thank you very much. That is very well appreciated. There's one more question from Samuel. If you are to get a word out to policymakers, supply chain, what would that be?
Ooh, I think it's definitely more sustainable in the long run to raise cattle this way. And we definitely fight a lot of people, policy makers in general, kind of leaning towards helping the other people, the more conventional side of things. Would be, I guess, my thoughts. Maybe the banks starting to cut back on lending a lot of money to bigger corporations that are driving the cost of land up, is maybe another thing that kind of I see as something that we maybe need to look at to change. But I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that question either.
Thank you very much, Josh, and I really appreciate your presentation today and the answering of questions. And I really like how your farm is improving animal welfare, because from your talk, one of the things that you appreciate and you like about grass-fed farming is that it's improving animal health, which is, I think, is of great interest nowadays about animal welfare. It's a very great interest for consumers, and also for future of regenerative farming sustainability. So thank you very much. I would really appreciate your talk. And you can stay around as we have one more speaker if you have time, but otherwise you are free to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward to listening to Danille.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So I will go to introduce our next speaker, Danille. Danille, are you ready? Oh, I'm seeing you now. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So just a brief introduction about Danille. Danille Dunn is a passionate and accomplished professional in the field of animal science, specializing in livestock feed manufacturing, quality assurance, and monogastric nutrition. Originally from Jamaica, Danille moved to Canada at the age of 17. That's quite young.
Yeah.
And pursued a dream of studying agriculture. Our journey included overcoming challenges as an international student, earning a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, Animal Science from the University of Guelph, and completing a master's degree with a focus on animal nutrition. Currently, Danille serves as the Quality Assurance Supervisor and Monogastric Nutritionist at Floradale Feed Mill. Danille brings years of research and industry experience to the role. Our dedication to feed safety, quality control, and improving livestock nutrition exemplifies our commitment to advancing Canadian agriculture. So at this point, I will give the floor to Danille to give your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I also just have an informal conversation. I don't have a presentation, so I won't be sharing my screen. Just to give everybody an idea of who I am and how I got here. And I'll be back for another one of these webinars to delve more into my current role. So, as mentioned, I was born and raised in Jamaica. I came to Canada in 2007, and I always wanted to be involved in agriculture on the animal science side. I always had a passion for it. In Jamaica, agriculture is a part of the curriculum, so it's considered a science in our classes. So that was the path that I took. When I graduated high school in Jamaica, that was when I moved to Canada and I wanted to continue in agriculture. When we got here, we realized that I had to go back to high school here in Canada because in Jamaica, the high school ends at grade 11. That's when you graduate high school. So when I moved here, I had to go back to high school for about 3 semesters before I got the credits that I needed to get into the University of Guelph. The reason I picked the University of Guelph was because it was the only agricultural university here in Ontario. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. I love Guelph, but I think it's important to remember that there are other paths that can take you to agriculture. There are a few colleges around, and I do work day to day with a lot of people who went to those colleges or did not take a direct path into agriculture. It's really, your end goal and your passions that matter there. So I decided that at that time that I was going to the University of Guelph. Not sure what I wanted to do. I thought maybe I wanted to be a vet, but I knew I wanted to be involved in animal agriculture. The idea of agriculture here in Canada was a little bit different than what I was used to. I was used to more, this growing for yourself and your neighbors, and you had a little bit of everything. You had some crops, but you also had some animals as well. And in Canada, things felt like it was on a much larger scale, but the more and more I work, I do recognize now that it's not just big corporations that are involved in agriculture. There's a lot of family farms still, like Josh here, for his presentation explaining his farms. So, there is a wide variety of scales of farming here, and you just have to pick what you're comfortable working in. So after I went back to high school in Canada, it was a big adjustment, a very big adjustment. the culture obviously is very different here. People's ideas on education felt a little different here, but my sister and I both went back to high school. She was older than me, and we ended up in the same classes. My sister went to be a nurse, so she got her credits to get into nursing school, and then I got my credits and I got into University of Guelph. So I started my Bachelor of Science in Agriculture in the fall of 2009. And yep, from then it was history. So I tried to be involved in as much as I could. I think at the time I thought that there were barriers, but a lot of the times it's barriers that you self-impose. There are a lot of opportunities to get involved in agriculture in the community if you put yourself out there. One of those ideas would be, for the 4-H club, or other corporations like the one that, that put on this webinar, which is great to see these sort of events that are happening to get the word out there, because it's hard to know where you can go in agriculture, but there are a lot of different opportunities, and yeah, it's a variety of opportunities. I started at university in 2009. One of the challenges that I had was figuring out that I had to work. I had to get a job while I was attending school, which was a little bit different for me. That was not something that I had to do in the past. I worked in a lot of restaurants while I was attending university. What I loved about my experience and time in those restaurants is it gave me better understanding of the culture here, and it kind of embedded me in the culture a little bit more. When I finished my first year, after first year university is typically when you pick your major, and I picked my major in animal science. And at that point, I decided that it was unlikely that I would continue with the thought that I was going to be a veterinarian, just because I wanted a lot more practical experience working day to day in agriculture. And at the time, I wasn't sure that a vet, a lot of the vets that the veterinarians that I was engaging with were more on the pet side, and that I wasn't interested in that at the time. So I decided just my major in animal science, and I would see where it takes me. So the University of Guelph, that's a 4-year program. You're the Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. In my 4th year, I decided to do an exchange program, and I went to the University of the West Indies, but the Trinidad and Tobago facility. So I went to Trinidad it was a full semester. So it was the fall semester of my final year of university. And at that time, they had opportunities there for me where I was able to work at a research center for water buffaloes, which was very interesting. So I worked with the water buffaloes for a semester. I wrote a paper that got published in the Trinidad paper. And when I came back to Canada to finish my program, at that time I decided that I did want to do my master's. I did my master's by coursework, which is shorter than doing your master's by thesis, but it's not something you have to specify when people ask if you have a master's. You don't say, "Oh, I have my master's by thesis," versus coursework. Some of the benefits of the thesis-based masters would be that, a lot of academics take that route. You know, it is a longer program and you're more involved with the professors. The program that I did by coursework, it was my professor allowed me to pick my project. I did not have funding for the project, so I still had to continue working. And because my professor gave me the opportunity to pick what I wanted to do for my project, I decided to continue with what I was studying when I was in Trinidad, which was the water buffaloes. At the time, I thought that water buffaloes had a great potential in Canada, a bit of a niche market. There are a few water buffalo farms here in Ontario, not too many. A lot of that milk goes just to making mozzarella cheese. And it did not take off the way that I thought it would take off. And it's just the way it is. Niche markets, you know, maybe it wasn't the time for it. And nowadays I'm seeing more and more about water buffalo farms as people continue to look for alternatives in their food and in their, you know, just their daily diet, not necessarily to do with health, but just a variety. So once I graduated and I finished my master's, I was a little bit lost, not sure where I was going to end up, what I wanted to do, because I know I didn't want to be a vet. You know, the water buffalo thing wasn't going to work out because, as I mentioned, it just wasn't the time. There were some government, OMAFRA had a few initiatives back then with water buffaloes where I think they were looking for new opportunities, but that didn't really go anywhere. So I found a role at a contract research organization, and I spent about 4 years there we were researching with dogs, cats, and rodents. So a lot of nutrition studies, behavioral studies. On the rodent side, a lot of drug studies, so medication studies where you're testing different pharmaceuticals and you know, maximum limits for drugs and so on. After I did that for about 3 years, I decided that I wanted to get back into agriculture because that somehow it completely removed me from agriculture. Being at a contract research organization, you know, they're really only going to focus on the studies that they're getting paid for, and those would be for your more on the pet side. And so I found a role at a vet clinic that had a research organization associated with it. So that was Southwest Veterinary Services here in Ontario in Stratford. And I really enjoyed that. You know, it was a swine-based operation, so only pigs, and I was able to be involved in a lot of studies that sort of revitalized my passion for agriculture, and I knew that that's where I wanted to remain. So the vet clinic is associated with Floradale Feed Mill, which is where I'm working right now. I had a coworker who he's the manager of the pig loop that we did our research in. He also worked for Floradale Feed Mill, and he let me know that there were some opportunities that were coming up as someone was going to be retiring in the next year. And he just suggested if I was interested, you know, he would take me along to the mill and introduce me to the people that I needed to be introduced to. And when I got here, yeah, it was a fit. So in 2020 or the end of 2019 was when I was hired at Floradale Feed Mill. And I started then my role as, at the time, I was the HACCP coordinator and monogastric nutritionist. And in the past year, now I'm the quality assurance supervisor, and also I'm still a monogastric nutritionist. And you know, a lot of the things that I've learned in my time after switching from, my job at the contract research organization and back into agriculture. I'm really happy that I had the opportunities that I did in the contract research organization, even in the restaurants that I worked in when I was attending university, because it not only did it teach me how to, gave me a good work ethic. It taught me how to work with a lot of the people that I work with, and it has increased my knowledge about a wide variety of things that I make use of in my day-to-day job. And I mean, so that's really me. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments that I can go deeper into.
Thank you very much, Danille, for that excellent presentation. Yeah, so from your story, it's a wonderful story. And now all I can find as a summary of that story to encourage young individuals online, I see the importance of volunteering, networking, and where you are working at the vet clinic. You network with someone else from another company and they ended up hiring you eventually. So that is very important. Asking questions. I heard that you ask questions being a vet, what does it really mean? And you realize that it's more into pet side and you prefer to work with agricultural animals compared to pets at that time. So asking questions about what you want to do, because you don't want to go into that field and spend 2 years or more, and then you realize after you graduated. So the right time to ask questions is before you venture into that thing.
Absolutely. And one thing I should mention, one thing that I did learn from that is now that I'm in my role, one of the things that I would say is lacking in agriculture in Ontario, at least, are large animal veterinarians. So I think, when you pay attention to the structure of how the veterinarians come about here, we've got OVC, Ontario Veterinary College, here in Guelph, and it's the competition is very, very high. So there's a lot of people that go in, and they go in to be veterinarians for pets. So I think it's really important to remember as well that not necessarily paying attention to what everybody else is doing. If it's something that you think that you want to do, like she said, just look, get all the information that you need to get, because now I'm seeing a lot of older veterinarians that are coming in because there's such a need for it, that they're coming into it a little bit later. They're coming out of research and going into practice. So that's just also another point too. It's never too late if you do try something and figure out something that you really want to do and it just doesn't work out. There are so many opportunities in the industry that you'll find your place.
Thank you very much. I think we have some questions now, but while I'm trying to look for the questions, can you tell me what you eventually did for your MSc at the University of Guelph? I know you wanted to research on water buffaloes and you couldn't do that because I know it will be difficult to get funding to sponsor you for that research. So what did you eventually do for your master's?
So I did do the water buffaloes. I was able to do a case study on, we had at the time 2 water buffalo farms, the one in Tavistock, just close by this area. It just wasn't what I wanted it to be, but I still was able to do a case study there, and we got a lot of data and a paper from that. So that's also another point that even if, you know, you have a project in mind or something in mind that your heart is set to it, if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted it to work out, there's still a chance for something else to happen. Like it, you know, it may not be exactly what you were thinking, but as long as you're passionate about what it is that you're doing, and you stick to it, then you'll get somewhere.
Thank you very much. And I also heard that you got a publication during your program on water buffaloes in Trinidad. I would like to read that publication.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
did it play any role in letting you get a master's position? Did that publication play any role?
I believe it did. I did bring it to my professor when I came here. And you know, the professor that I worked with in Trinidad, he was also great. And again, you know, really important to keep up with those connections, and so that you're able to network and you have those people in your lives, especially when they help you a lot. And you know, thinking about how to promote yourself, I put my paper and the bottom of my resume. I didn't do that at the start, just because I thought that, you know, it's a little disheartening when you graduate university and you are sending out lots and lots of resumes and you're not hearing anything back, and you know, you wonder why. And you know, I did not have my publication on my resume at the start because I thought that employers would see that and think, like water buffaloes, that's weird. This is Canada. Why would she be working with water buffaloes? So I did not have that on my resume at the start, but after a while I did put it on there. And whether or not that helped me get the jobs that I did, I'd like to think it did. But you know, just promote yourself and don't be scared of sharing your accomplishments.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So there's a question here about someone that recently completed a master's degree at McGill University in the Department of Animal Science, and currently the person is working as a poultry technician at Bunbury Farms. So could you guide, the person is asking if you can guide him or her on how to secure a job that suits the qualifications.
Sure. Yeah. That sounds, I mean, you know, it's Burnbrae is a great company. I have worked with nutritionists that have put feed into Burnbrae farms. So, you know, I would say just keep at it, you know, in your day-to-day. Remind the people there why you're great at your job. Always network. So, you know, take opportunities if you have networking events, or you know, even if it is a Christmas party that Burnbrae's putting on, you know, make sure that the people that are there in higher positions, you know, they know your name, they know your face, they recognize you, and they associate that with good work. And then just, you know, I would recommend, if you're not sure about your resume, there's lots of services here in Ontario, and I'm sure in other provinces as well. There are lots of services that will review your resume with you, and just make sure that, you know, just to make sure it has a professional look and that it's clear and there isn't a lot of noise in there that employees would be concerned about. So I'd say take advantage of those services as well. So, you know, the those services and networking is huge. You know, a lot of the people that I work with day to day, they've gotten their jobs because of someone else that they knew in another part of the industry. So, you know, never discount the people that are around you.
Thank you very much. I go to the next question. From Thomas, apart from passion, is career in agriculture financially rewarding? That's an interesting question.
That's an interesting,
Yeah.
that's a good question. That's a
Yeah.
good question. And it is. I would say, especially nowadays, maybe more than pre-COVID times, COVID brought a lot of labor shortages. So I would say that a highly skilled person in agriculture will be financially successful, especially because, based on what I'm seeing here at the feed mill, the people that we have to, that we have coming in to do interviews and hiring, it's a lot of people that don't really have an understanding of agriculture animals. So you are kind of going backwards in your training. So I would say, as long as you've got those skills, you've got your resume and your networking, depending on the job, it is financially rewarding. And again, depending on the company as well, of course. So, some of the we've seen you can have salaries between $50,000 and $100,000. You can have salaries over $100,000. Again, just depending what your role is. I would say we do need to do a better job as an industry of paying the people that work in the livestock area. So, in your pig barns and things like that. Those people, I would say, are underappreciated and maybe don't make necessarily as much money as they should, because it is hard work and they do deserve to be paying more. But when you get to sort of a more professional level, yep, it is rewarding.
Thank you very much. So we have another question from Mobolaji. How is your day-to-day activities look like in the quality assurance supervision role in your organization?
So at a feed mill, we look at two things. We look at quality of the feed, and we're also looking at feed safety. So right now, our mill is a bit more manual than some other feed mills. So we still have paper production logs, whereas other mills, everything's a little bit more automated. Not all mills, but we are undergoing an automation process in the next year. But right now it's very manual. So my days usually start with me going through the production records from the previous day. We run 24 hours. So, and I'm looking to make sure that there isn't anything in there that could impact animal health and safety or human health and safety for the humans eating those animal products. And also, throughout the day, I'm, identifying if there's a texture issue with a feed, or, if there's a feed contamination issue with a feed. Those things will just pop up throughout the day. And then the rest of the time, I'm focusing on nutrition.
Oh, sounds great. Do you have to do any test, like some chemical analysis, or just on the spot?
So the only testing that we do in-house would be, we do mycotoxin testing, we do particle size analysis, moisture on grain. For all the other tests, we send it out externally. We have a quality control program where there is random samples that get pulled and sent to the lab.
Sounds great. Thank you. From Samuel, we have a question. Thanks for the excellent presentation. What advice do you have for international students who is just coming in and trying to figure out life? Yeah, we understand that you came to Canada just at the age of 17, and you figured out everything by yourself. That's quite commendable. So, and I know you have some things to share.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say just be true to yourself. Be true to yourself and always just do your best, because it will show when you are. Make connections, put yourself out there, make personal connections and professional connections, and just remember that those two don't have to be the same. You can't just, making personal connections outside of your workplace or outside of school is important. And look into your communities for different social services that they offer. So, Do they have a bingo night? Things like that. If you're looking to grow your social circle and you're just not sure where to do that, just start in your local communities, because they're always looking for volunteers. They're always looking for people to be around, whether for different events, to help out. And not only does that put you out there to make more connections, but it'll help you just learn about the area that you're in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll go to the next question. It's about, I know you are not a vet, but maybe because you work in a vet clinic for some time, maybe you can help to the best of your ability. So this person is a foreign trained veterinarian, and right now is working as a swine technician in Ontario, but still trying to get into veterinary field in Canada. How can the person go about that, if you have any idea?
Yeah, so just look out for those job postings. The two major vet clinics that I know of here in Ontario that are swine focused is Southwest Veterinary Services and Demeter Services. So a swine technician is a great role to get yourself in a position to step up to that position, because you're gonna have your swine technician job experience and have that on your resume. And I would approach those vet clinics, and you don't need to wait for a job posting. I would say just send your job postings out regardless of if they have announced that they're looking for someone or not, because sometimes people are looking for someone, they just haven't gotten around to put the post in yet. So make yourself available, and get on LinkedIn and make those connections.
Thank you very much. So Eric, can you send an email to admin@iyca.ca, and we'll be able to provide more detailed answer to your question. And also, there's another question that's related to that from Mobology. I will also encourage you to send an email to admin@iyca.ca. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time, Danille. We really enjoy your session, and we are thankful for the question and answer time. Thank you very much, and I think we will round up at this time. As we round up the webinar session, I'd like to thank our speakers, Josh and Danille, for their time to engage with our audience and for sharing your experience. We really appreciate that. So to our audience, thank you for your participation and your enthusiasm, your questions. We appreciate that, and your engagement. So we look forward to having you again in our next webinar, in our next edition of webinar. Yeah. Thank you very much, and yeah, we end it at this time. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, bye.